Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on what side of the world you're on. This is Lolo John, and I'm coming to you from Letting Go Philippine Style. And one of the first things that you have to determine when you're thinking about moving to a foreign country is whether you should move to a foreign country at all. And that's one of the questions we're going to look at here and help you try to answer. Now, I can't speak for anybody else's situation except my own. And so I'm going to share a little bit about how I came to that decision of whether moving to a foreign country was the right thing for me to do. You need to look at the way that I've done it, look at your own situation, and come up with your own decision. Now, in my case, what I did first was I looked at the reality of am I going to be okay with leaving my family? My family was one of the biggest reasons to stay. And so I had to talk with my family about it. We discussed options, different things that we could or should do to stay in touch. And in the end, the family decided that it was actually going to be a good thing for me to go ahead and go overseas. The kids are all grown. They've got kids of their own. And there were some serious things to think about when we started talking about healthcare as I get older. And did the kids really want to be in a position where they were having to be a nursemaid to me or give me a place to live, as opposed to being in a healthcare center or a nursing home? My argument was that living in a nursing home was going to drain all of my finances and would have me destitute in about 3 to 4 years. And they agreed. The current state of nursing homes and how much money they take from you and the way that they siphon off your funds and your resources, it's very sad. And so I said, I really need to be in a place where I can get long-term health care and I don't have to tax my own family to do that. So one of the things that I really liked about the Philippines is the Philippines have nursing schools, tons of nursing schools. Nurses are one of their greatest exports from their country. They have nurses that go all over the world. So fortunately, if I ever needed long-term health care, I could actually pay for a full-time nurse. And the cost is relatively inexpensive. I mean, super cheap compared to the United States. And I can literally have a live-in nurse in my home taking care of me until the day that I pass away. And the financial ability to do that is so good that it, in my mind, negated the need for my kids to have to do that. I didn't want to burden my kids with that. So by going to the Philippines, I was able to take that off their shoulders. And I think everybody in the family was good with it. So then the next thing was the finances, the money. Once I determined that the family was okay with it, is my budget going to be okay with it? So what I looked at was my passive monthly income. So when you go out there and you start to study how the different cultures in different countries do their financing and the way that that their culture sets up rent and other bills, it's all done monthly. So since that's the case, I was able to actually look at this and say, okay, how much passive income do I have coming in that I could pay for rent, for utilities, for food, for everything that I'm going to need for day-to-day living? Now, it's important that we talk about passive versus active funds, because sure, I could go out and get another job. Absolutely I could. But that's not how you want to plan, and that's not how you want to budget. What you need to do first is figure out what your passive income is, meaning if you didn't work a day in that foreign country and all you did was live off the money that you have coming in month to month to month, how much is it? So for me, looking at my passive monthly income meant adding up what my Social Security was going to be, and then looking at my 401k, how much will that give me per month? So I had to literally make appointments, sit down with retirement people, and ask financial advisors to give me an idea how much will I get from my pension. In my case, they were able to annuitize that pension so that I get a certain amount of money each month for the rest of my life out of that 401k. So I could count on that as a supplemental income, a passive supplemental income to my Social Security. So then I looked at my investments. Now, I had some investments that had experienced really good growth, and I talked to the financial advisors again about this, and they said again, this is a great opportunity for you. We can take the money from these investments that you've made. We can change your financial strategy so that your investments now go into more secured and slower growth, but more safe growth, if you will. And we can get you this much per month. And I said, well, how long will I get that? And I said, well, the markets fluctuate back and forth a little bit, but we think that we could get you this and get it generated for at least 20 to 25 years. So that leads me to the next point. After adding all that up and looking at it, I had to determine, how many years do I think that I will have available to me being relatively healthy? And this is what most people don't take into consideration when they're thinking about whether they should or shouldn't retire to a foreign country. How many years of healthy existence do you think that you have? So the next thing you got to look at is your personal health. How healthy are you? Do you have some conditions, chronic conditions, that may require more health care than what you get here? And you have to think about all those things and say, okay, based on my thinking about how much health I have available to me for how many years, that's what I want to make sure I have money for. The reality is that apart from healthcare costs, your income is going to be used the most and utilized the most when you are in your younger, healthier years. The older we get, the more likely it is that we are going to be experiencing health issues that are going to drain our finances more. But also by that time, we're usually pretty set up in whatever country we're in. And so our day-to-day expenses are usually at the lowest of our journeys. So it kind of balances out. But it's something that you need to think about. So again, you do the family first. Is the family going to be okay with it? And then is your budget going to be okay with it? Would you have the money to be able to live overseas? Then you want to look at your health. How long do you think you have in healthy years to look at? And can you budget enough passive income so that the healthiest years you have are when you're going to have the most amount of income coming in? Once you make those choices, you're going to have a much better idea of exactly where you're at in being able to look at going to a foreign country. Now, once you make your decision, and based on those criteria, I looked at my situation and said, I can go to the Philippines. And I would actually live much better, a much better quality of life there than what I'm going to live at in the U.S. if I stayed and tried to live on that same money. Now, the reality is, if I stayed here in the U.S., I would very likely go ahead and get another job and keep working. But you got to be careful of that, because that would come out of your Social Security, and it could mess up a lot of that passive income strategy that you're trying to get. So think about those things when you're thinking about, when do I retire? I decided to retire at 62. The reason why was because I had heard person after person, expat after expat, saying that the one thing that they regretted about their retirement to the Philippines was that they didn't do it sooner. They did not realize that they had the money all along to be able to live a really good life out there. You get so focused on what's going on here in the US, and it's all you see, and we see the struggle and think, oh, it would be just like that in another country. No, it's not like that in other countries. And the same money that you would struggle with in the US will actually empower you to live a really good life in another country. But as we mentioned, there's other factors that play into it. So I appreciate you listening to the video. Leave your comments and thoughts below, and make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, because I've got more stuff coming. Because the next thing that you really need to look at is the plan. And I mentioned this in one of my previous videos. Once you decide that you should go to the Philippines, the next is to plan going to the Philippines. And planning, it'll surprise you. It's quite the task. So we'll go over it in the next video. So thank you very much. And you guys have a great rest of your day, morning, evening, afternoon. Be kind to one another.